Welcome to the Badass Direct Sales Mastery Podcast with your direct sales dom, Jennie Bellinger. Badass Direct Sales Mastery is a podcast for rockstar direct sales moms who are determined to make their business kick ass. Jennie will share her knowledge of effective sales and recruiting techniques, tips to get what you want from your business, and will interview direct sales professionals and leaders from various companies. The interviews will give insight to how these rock stars got to where they are and where they plan to grow in the future. And now, the direct sales dom, Jennie Bellinger.
Welcome back to another episode of Badass Direct Sales Mastery. I'm your host, your direct sales dom, Jennie Bellinger, helping you whip your business into shape. Today, I am ecstatic and floored and super happy to share my guest with you, because if you've been listening to the show for any amount of time, you've heard me talk about my mentor when I was active in Park Lane Jewelry. So Mary Grace Lewandowski is the mentor who worked with me for years, and by golly, did she mold that clay. So Mary Grace was a huge influence in who I am and who I've become in the world of business and the world of direct sales. And so I'm ecstatic to share her with you guys today, because she has an amazing story to her first six figures and beyond. So she is a huge believer in direct sales, and she loves sharing how it can help people achieve life and work balance. She continues to be a lifelong learner, and she's been recognized as top in pretty much every recognition category with 2 different direct sales companies. So Mary Grace, welcome to the show.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't ask for a better introduction, because that really is my big why, is influencing other people to be able to do what I did and have what I have, and just to increase their self-esteem, their reach, their possibilities. So I am thrilled to death that you feel that way. That's awesome.
Oh my gosh, Mary Grace, if only you knew. It's not just me. There are many, many others that you have positively influenced over the years, because you've been in this industry for almost 3 decades now.
Yes, I really have. It's approaching like 30 years.
Oh my gosh. So tell
crazy.
us how did you get started in the industry?
You know, what's funny to me too is I thought I had my life all planned out. I just knew I was going to be like a cradle to grave corporate person. My dad worked for Eastman Kodak Company, and I worked for them in the summers, and I was a Kodak intern, and I just knew that that's what I would do. And I graduated from college in 1983, a huge recession. Nobody could find any jobs. And it ended up taking me on a different path than what I thought I would do. And as it turned out, I've ended up having several different careers and jobs. And it's just crazy to me, but you just have to follow that path that's put in front of you. So I was a teacher for a year, and I was so unhappy in the little town where I was working, because I felt like every dollar I made was just keeping me there, paying my rent. And I was talking about this recently. My starting salary was $11,000 a year. Can you imagine?
Whoa.
And somehow I lived on that. Yeah, I lived on that. But anyway, then I ended up going into business, and I was in the steel industry, and the sales for the steel industry. And I worked for them in 3 different cities, one of their top salespeople, whatever. And when I came here to St. Louis, that's when I met my husband, who you also know or knew.
Mm-hmm.
And we got married. Well, when we got married, we decided we needed some life-work balance. We didn't want to both be working those crazy sales hours. So I went back to teaching. Now, I am going somewhere with this, but unfortunately, when I went back to teaching, it was like a 50% pay cut from what I was making in the steel industry. And, we thought we would live on love, but very quickly we found out, nope. Plus, I always remember that I made an appointment for a pedicure, and he said, we can't afford that. And I'm like, all right, that does it. There is no reason for us to go around, looking like this. So anyway, yeah, so funny. And I got invited to a candle party, and I was at the party, and I was like, I could do this, I'll do this on the side. Well, a funny part of this story, which there's a lot of lessons in this, I think, is that I checked yes on the door prize slip. You know how we used to do that?
Yeah.
That I would want information. And the gal sent me like a packet of information, but she never called me. She never followed up. I'm not faulting her. I just learned from all of this.
Right.
And then I couldn't even remember the name of the company after a while. And every so often, my husband, Paul, would say, Mary Grace, you really got to look into that candle thing. And I'm like, 6 years later, Jenny, you know the story, I think. 6 years later, I get an invitation to another candle party. And I took it and I put it up on my refrigerator. And I went to that party knowing that I wanted to find out more about it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the gal who did the show, it was her very first show. I booked a party because I was thinking about it. I had the party. It was a terrible party. There were only 3 people there. I don't even think we made whatever the qualifying thing was. But remember, as a teacher, we didn't have a lot of money.
Right.
And this gal was about to walk out the door, and Paul walked in, my husband, and he goes, did you ask her? And the gal who did the show stopped and turned around and said, ask me what? And I go, oh, well, I was thinking about asking you about the job. So there's so many lessons in that because she almost left without it. First person missed the opportunity because she didn't follow up with a call or anything. The second person almost missed the opportunity because she just thought, oh my gosh, what a terrible show. Can't wait to get out of here. And I went on to be her first recruit and literally where she was making, I think at least $75,000 a year just from having signed me up. So there's just so many lessons in that story, I think.
Oh, you think?
Yeah.
You think?
Yeah. And then my original, like most people, my original goal when I started direct sales was just little stuff, like ideally I thought, gosh, if I can make like $100 a week and help pay for groceries, that would take so much off of Paul's plate. He was my big why because he was a worrier. And then as it started to evolve, within 2 years, I had left teaching and dedicated myself completely direct sales. And, the rest is history. It just really took off and I had an affinity for it. I absolutely loved every aspect of it. And when I saw concerns with that particular company, it was so interesting to me and wonderful because Park Lane, which you worked for too, to my knowledge, were one of the only companies that will bring people in at a level commensurate with their experience, which made so much sense to me because I didn't want to start all over. So they hired me in at a level that was commensurate with everything that I achieved, the talent that I had shown, the levels that I had already succeeded in. So I hit the road running here at Park Lane about 15 years ago and was able to build another huge direct sales business. So it's been a ride and it's been absolutely wonderful and educational, and I continue to learn all the time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I of course didn't meet you until the Park Lane era, although in talking with my former sister-in-law who brought me into the business, she had taken me to one of your candle quarters events. And so and so I had been at one of those. So you and I had been in a room together before once.
Yeah, fate kept putting us together until you pulled the trigger.
Exactly. The universe went, hey, you need to pay attention.
Yeah.
So you've been doing this for that long. You started as an educator, which is something that I see happen a lot because, educators just are not rewarded financially for all that they do.
Oh my gosh, we're so appreciative. We're so appreciative of the money that we make in direct sales.
Right? Big time.
Yes.
Absolutely. Because the same was true for me. I was an educator, and I don't know if you've heard my side of the story of what happened for me, but I had been trying to get back into the classroom. I had gone on 18 interviews in 2010 and heard 18 no's because remember, we were in the middle of the recession back then.
Yeah. And same as 1983. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so I remember telling the universe, fine, if I'm not supposed to be in the classroom, where am I supposed to be? And that's when an invitation for that very first Park Lane Jewelry fashion show showed up in my mailbox because my sister-in-law mailed me a flyer inviting me to this event. And I went to that event having promised my then husband that I would not book a party because he was sick of getting kicked out of the house during the party. And so that's why I booked the party at my mother's house. And that turned into my intro. Yes. So that whole beginning piece, I mean, just we all have our own unique reasons for having started, because I just remember walking into that fashion show event. I was wearing t-shirt and jeans and sneakers for a fashion show event because I was such a stay-at-home mom at the time. I was like, oh, we're just going out.
That's what everybody wears now.
Right. Yeah. But it was such a different, unique experience for every one of us there. And I just remember when you guys offered the opportunity, and I remember looking around the room going, why is not everyone jumping out of their chair right now? And I went up to the front of the room to grab the packet or whatever it was that y'all were handing out at the time. And it was just, I remember asking you, what happens if I don't succeed? And you're like, you walk away with all the jewelry and the money that you make.
Yeah. Everybody leaves Park Lane with more than they came with, you know, like, yeah, but really, truly, you learn this along with me. It's like 95% of the population is into what they call failure avoidance.
Yeah.
So they'll complain about their situation or not be quite comfortable in their situation, but it's their situation and you're used to it. Yeah. And it takes courage, even when, there's no monetary risk with something like this. The worst thing that can happen is you don't like it and you're back to where you were before. But that became so much more of my mission almost, was like, take a chance, Yeah. Everything that we don't get is on the other side of fear, some kind of fear. Yeah. And, and so many times, like someone could be listening to this podcast right now with absolutely no intention of taking on another job or another gig, just like you didn't when you first got the invitation, just like I didn't. And it's like, they're happy accidents, they're just happy accidents normally when we fall into something like this.
Oh my gosh. So you've gone through the journey of essentially starting over, because even when you left the candle company and came over to Park Lane, you were starting at zero in terms of
sales. I had a title.
You had a title. You didn't have a team. You didn't, right? Because you were not allowed to bring people over, and I put air quotes around that. And so it really came down to, so you started at zero and you've made it to six figures and beyond in 2 different companies. What are some of the lessons you've learned along the way in going from 0 to 100K that you would want to share with somebody who isn't quite there yet, but they want it and they want it really badly?
Yeah. Well, first, I think I was very lucky that I wasn't from St. Louis, Missouri. I moved here. I planted here because of my husband. Because I wasn't grown and, raised in St. Louis. Now, I know people are probably from all over the country listening, but in St. Louis, they have this weirdest thing where they ask you what high school you went to.
Yep.
And if you didn't go to high school here, you're pretty much like you fail the first social question and they're not hiring, you're not going to have a friend. But the reason it was lucky for me is because it almost always, it was a business, meaning I didn't have the luxury, or I shouldn't say luxury, but also the experience of where people feel like their friends and family should help them grow their business. Because I just find that people feel like, oh, my mother isn't supporting me, so it's off, and I'm sure you remember, but I always would tell the story like, now what if Sam Walmart, I know that's not his last name, but what if Sam Walmart did that? Like everybody closed the doors, my mother's not here, Or I would talk about how I used to sell steel and how truly my dad was my biggest cheerleader. He just thought I could do anything. And yet he never bought a piece of steel for me. And people laugh, but I go, we laugh, but why didn't he buy steel for me? Because he didn't need steel. So maybe your friends and family don't love whatever product it is that you are representing yet, or they have their reasons for not wanting to get drawn into that and be like your only customer. But you have to go to where the people do use that product, right? So obviously when I sold steel, I went, to industries that use steel. When I began I did candles, I found all the different types of people that would love candles. When I did jewelry, all the different types of people that would love jewelry. And then know that I wanted to go in all these different directions because it's exponential growth after that. So when I started the candle thing, it was more like, okay, the people that I had at my show, teachers, like one of those booked a show. I remember thinking, okay, what other aspects of my life could I, not take advantage of, but take this, as
Leverage.
a circuit.
Yeah.
My kids' teachers, one of them had one. I still remember my husband's secretary at that time, my nail lady, like anybody who you hand your money to. What makes America America is free enterprise, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is looking for us to pay them in some way for a service or a good. So they're, generally, and it's that fear thing again. It's just having the confidence to ask. And if they say no, you're no worse off than you were before, right?
Right. Yes.
But also this struck me when you were talking about how many educators do this type of business. We do not become teachers because we want to get rich. We become teachers because we have servant hearts. What I find is that when you step back from this and you realize, I want to really do this for you, not have you do this for me. So I am going to provide you with a fun, entertaining evening. I'm going to provide you with free or, discounted services or goods. I'm going to make you so proud that you had me introduced to your friends, and people are going to talk about what a neat experience this was. When you start and then you approach it that way, that it's really about other people, I'm going to offer you this job because I really want this for you, not because I have to recruit someone or I have to sell something. And when you put, you give more than 100%, you have no expectations of them, but you're delivering for them. It actually helps you build pretty quickly because people can feel your heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. And whenever I've ever found myself at a standstill where I'm not feeling it, I'm realizing, you know why, Mary Grace? Because these are your feelings and you're making this about yourself. You're offended or you're hurt or you're whatever, or you're desperate. And you have to go back to that other way of thinking.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that answered your question, but that has totally helped me along the way.
It really does. And you are the person who introduced me to really great books. One of them being The Success Principles with Jack Canfield, and the other being Go Giver with Bob Burg and John David Mann. And those two books I know are something that you, at least when I was active in the business, you would regularly refer to them, right? And I'm assuming you still do.
Anything by John Maxwell.
Oh, yeah.
When The Secret came out real big on Oprah, I was like, oh my gosh, yes. Yes. Like when you're putting good out into the universe, the good is going to come back to you, right?
Right.
Just open hands. People are so hesitant sometimes to invest, or they're so afraid that people won't follow through. Like if they give them something free up front or something. And I'm like, you know what? Just if you're holding a $10 bill and you're clenching onto that $10 bill so hard, it's never going to be open to receive the $100 bill, So just all of that stuff was so influential. And there's actually a word for it, Jenny. I know we did it a lot then, and I believed in it, and I don't remember exactly how I trained on it. But now they call it entercation. And I think I'm saying that right. But it's like you're educating people, but also entertaining them at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're learning ways to educate people about what these products will do for them in such a positive way, that's different than here's my stuff, buy it.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, that's a whole different vibe. Totally different vibe. Oh my gosh. And I know something to add on to what you were talking about there with the holding on to the $10 bill, because I see this, and I literally just had a conversation with somebody yesterday in the UK whose team was experiencing something like this, and they were expressing it to her as the leader, and she didn't know how to overcome it. And so we coached through it, which is the team members who were afraid to turn their best customers into team members. And I remember,
yes, exactly.
Right. Oh my gosh, because that fits right in
all the time.
Yeah, because
and it's like you're focusing on the checking account, and you're missing the money market opportunities.
Right, exactly. Right? Which not everybody notices. Invest. Yeah, they don't notice. They don't know what that means necessarily, but they're looking at the short-term money versus the long-term.
Right.
Because
exactly.
If you knew how much I love the jewelry, now granted, the first time you met me that night, I jumped right in and both feet in, all in on the business. But had you first met me as a customer, and I love the jewelry, and I would have been happy to host parties all the time and blah, blah, blah. And you had never converted me, right? You made a lot more money with me on your team than not.
Yes. And there's probably, I'm going to have to think about it, but there's probably people that you introduced me to and that you had on your team that are still in some way active in my downline.
Oh, yeah, they are. And even if they're not active in the downline, anytime someone reaches out to me and says, hey, I'm having a jewelry issue, because surprising, there are still people who don't know that I'm not in the industry any longer. You're the first person I send them to, because I'm not with the company, so I can't help you.
It's a perfect example. You're somebody who started the business, but you're no longer in this business with me. Mm-hmm. But where's the real win? The real win is the influence it had on your life, the directions it's taken you in, how many other people you've been able to help because of what have you learned here. And none of that would have happened if I was like, no, I just want to keep her as a customer.
Yeah, exactly. Right. If you had just said, nope, she's just going to have a party for me every year.
Yeah.
I just want to make a few $100 from her every year instead of thousands of dollars.
Well,
monthly,
and really, it comes back to the open heart thing too. Like, what's the right thing to do? It's up to them to decide. We need to offer. We need to let them know that this wonderful opportunity is there. They can say yes or no, but it's our job to offer it. It's not our job to make it those decisions for them. So that's just the way it works.
Yeah. And so we've talked about the sales piece. We've talked about the sponsoring piece. The other area in which you excel in is helping to develop leaders. And I know that this is a big part of how you got to your six figures, is because you didn't just hold the mantle of leadership and not help others develop over the years. So what got you started in that leadership space and helping and knowing how to help others become leaders?
Well, I think you mature in the business. I was one of those people that at first said, oh, I'm not going to do any of that recruiting stuff. And then as this started to happen, I'm like, well, who am I to be having this kind of money that I feel like it's just so I don't even deserve it. And, who am I not to share this with other people, And I started to kind of just mature in the business. And you've probably talked about this on your podcast before, and I don't want to bore anybody, but I think it was just also studying John Maxwell and the 5 levels of leadership.
Yeah.
Are you familiar?
We've had that discussion a few times. John Maxwell is one of the few authors you introduced me to who I haven't interviewed yet.
Yeah. The first level of leadership is just title.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people expect that. They expect, well, I recruited you and you're on my team and you need to do what I say. And it's like, well, good luck with that, because this is a volunteer business. And by the way, the most successful leaders in the world are considered those that are able to run a volunteer business, because they're not holding anything over people's head.
Yeah.
They're just able to speak to their hearts. Okay. Then that second level of leadership, which I've seen a lot of people get to, is when they're sharing, having a relationship with the people. Like, the people know, they follow them because they know the leader cares about them. And I've seen a lot of that. It's that third level of leadership that's a little bit harder, when it's like, what have we done as a team? What are we doing to motivate a team? Mm-hmm. So, for example, if you have 3 people in your downline, are they each just working on their own stuff for their own, or do you feel like a team? Like, oh my gosh, you guys, let's like, try to be the number one blank team in the company, or let's go for this goal together, or whatever. But the fourth level of leadership is when you want others to be able to do that with their teams. And I just thought, that's people development. And it's like, I don't want just, to be the captain of the team and have a team. I want these people to come up here with me or even surpass me, so that they, can go on and develop their own little franchises or whatever. So yeah, that's how it works. That means you're doing it right. And then the fifth level of leadership is just like, I guess in some realms, I achieved this probably even just by being on this podcast, but it's like people haven't even met you or know you, but they would follow you because of what they know you've achieved,
Right.
and that's like just the fifth level of leadership. So I use that always as blueprint and a guideline, and going back again and thinking, okay, Mary Grace, who are you working with? Who are you developing? Who are you, especially as I get older, like you said, like a mentor, people need, when people act like things are extinct, they think of like a dodo bird, or a woolly mammoth or whatever. Great leadership is extinct in some ways. So we have to, and it's everything rises and falls on it. So we have to make sure that we are teaching other people how to be great leaders. We have to.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially if being successful in the business is one of your goals, then the way you get there, the path you get there is through that people development and that top,
absolutely.
that pinnacle leadership.
We are paid in the indirect sales. We are paid for our level of influence. And the more people we influence, the more money that we make.
Yeah.
So, and I sound like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth here. And yet all along the way, we can't be doing it because of the money we will make.
Right.
It just starts to come back to us. Yeah.
Right. Well, and that's what's so fascinating, because I've actually done some work in that area in terms of looking at what motivates people in direct sales and network marketing. And in the work that I've done, the research that I've done, 87% of direct sellers and network marketers are not motivated by money. They're motivated by helping other people. They're motivated by working together as a team. They're motivated by self-expression. They're motivated by learning, but they're not motivated by money. And so and what I find so interesting is how many companies and how many leaders, and I'm putting air quotes around that, talk about the money as a motivator instead of helping, talking about helping others and doing that. So that disconnect between, what people think motivates people in direct sales and what they think motivates themselves.
Yeah, I think all of us come into it, not all of us, but to make money.
Right.
But then as we start to learn all of the other things about it, but they say that about any job, I think. They say like people crawl across the desert with no water for something that they believe in, and it's just being able to be part of something where you can have that really everything. You can be where you need to be when you need to be there, but you're also serving others. You're, and it's important.
It very much is. So, I'm glad we got to cover all of these areas, because they're the three areas that I know that in order to be successful, and especially if someone has an intention of getting to the top of their company, being a multi-six-figure, seven-figure earner, focusing on helping people understand how to have a sales process that doesn't feel icky and gross, which you addressed, which is don't stop making it about you and helping others. Doing the same for the sponsoring piece, which is, helping people see what this might do for them, and then leading them along that way. So those three areas, the sales, the sponsorship, and the leadership, when you focus on those three things, listener, badass crew, that this works, because it's something that Mary Grace has done for many, many years. And she has helped many people do the same in those three areas. So I am so glad that you're here. And you have kindly offered, Mary Grace, to do a drawing for a jewelry package valued at $250. So we're going to do a drawing for the Badass Crew listeners right now. So anybody who's listening right now, there is a link to a Google form in the show notes. Mary Grace, would you like to talk about the jewelry in case they haven't heard about Park Lane Jewelry, and tell us about the winning package, the $250 package?
Oh, certainly. And of course, I have to put in a plug that I still do presentations and home shows, online shows, whatever, and share like fashion tips about jewelry. But we are a direct sales jewelry company, obviously the largest one in the world. And we don't have a niche market. It's something I love is there's a variety from minimalist to, over the top and everything in between. So I curate the package. Should you win, I curate the package for what your taste is. So we'll make sure if you like silver or gold or rose gold or pearls or natural stones, if you're a bracelet wearer or if you love big earrings. So we will be in touch. I will be in touch and make sure that we curate it to be something that you absolutely love.
Yes, fantastic. And so what we're going to do is make sure, if you would like to be part of the drawing to win the $250 in jewelry curated to your tastes and desires,
Yes.
fill out the Google form, and it's easy peasy. All we need is your name and email so we can reach out if you're the winner. We will do a drawing together. Mary Grace and I will hop back on Zoom. We'll do a drawing. We'll record it. We'll put it out there on all of the socials so people can see who the winners are. And then Mary Grace will be reaching out to the winner in order to help you choose your prize package. So Mary Grace, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Number one, for being so generous on your gift. And number two, for being here to share you, because like I said, I've talked about you in a good way.
Oh, that thrills me no end. That's wonderful.
For years on the podcast. In fact, if you go to, I think, episode 1, I talk about my mentor. So,
well, you were a star pupil.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad you're here. And of course, Badass Crew, if you would like to reach out and learn more about Mary Grace, learn more about what she's doing, and would like to connect with her just to see what she's doing in the world, you said Mary Grace, Facebook is the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, Facebook. I know a lot of people don't do Facebook anymore, but
oh, sure they do.
Instagram also, yeah, and even through my Park Lane website. If you if you put in Park Lane Mary Grace Lewandowski, it'll come up.
Yeah, absolutely. She's definitely the first hit on Google when you type in Park Lane Jewelry and Mary Grace Lewandowski, if you know how to spell Lewandowski.
Right. It's very phonetic.
Right. Well, we'll make sure we put the links also in the show notes so people can connect with you directly there. So if you get a massive number of friend requests and also messages, you'll know. And of course, Badass Crew, when you reach out to Mary Grace, let her know you heard her here on the show. So that way she knows her time was valuable being here to know that she made an impact on you through this conversation. So
well, thank you so much. And I'm so proud of you, Jennie. It's really so cool and rewarding to see what you've done with your direct sales journey. It's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, it all started with somebody who believed in me and was willing to put the work in to help me learn and see all of these things as well. So I can now go out and share. So the ripples are continuing to go out. Thanks to you, Mary Grace.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And Badass Crew, you know how this goes. Stay tuned because there's another badass episode on its way.
Thanks for listening to the Badass Direct Sales Mastery Podcast with your direct sales dom, Jennie Bellinger. Why are you waiting to go to badassdirectsalesmastery.com? Don't make the dom get her whip. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share it with another rock star that you know in direct sales after you subscribe to the podcast so you won't miss any future episodes. You can also check out the show notes for links and any contact information mentioned in today's episode. We'll see you next time.